Welcome back to Living History. This is the podcast where I get to sit down with some of the coolest people from the past and hear their stories straight from them. Last time, I hung out with the one and only Humphrey Bogart. His personal life and his life in general seemed like quite the struggle, and he really opened up to us, which could basically be summarized in him saying, "Kid, it's like I'm starring in my own picture, but the script's all wrong." But today's a whole new adventure. We're heading down to the Mississippi River to meet a guy who's funny, smart, and maybe a little sneaky. Mark Twain. Okay, I'm standing here by this big wide river. It's the Mississippi, and it's huge. The water's all brown and swirly, and there's this old wooden dock stretching out, and... Wait, there he is! I see him! He's got his bushy mustache, and he's puffing on his cigar. That's gotta be Mark Twain. Hey, Mark Twain! Over here! Mark Twain!
Well, if it ain't a young fella hollering at me like I'm some steamboat captain late for supper. What's your name, boy? And what brings you to my river?
I'm Casey Simpson, Mr. Twain. I've got this podcast, like a talking show, and I'd love to hear your stories. Everyone says you're the best storyteller ever.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Casey. The best storyteller ever, huh? Well, I've been told worse lies. Sit yourself down on that log there, and I'll spin you a yarn. Ain't every day I get a visitor who ain't trying to sell me something. How's about I tell you the tale of the river's secret? It's a true one, mostly.
Yes, please. I'm all ears.
Back when I was a cub pilot on this here Mississippi, around the 1850s, I learned this river like it was my own heartbeat. The Mississippi is well worth reading about, I'd say later. It is not a commonplace river, but on the contrary, is in all ways remarkable. See, Casey, this river's got a mind of its own. Twistin', turnin', hiding sandbars just to trick a fella. But one summer, I found something in it that was hiding deeper. It started when I was working under old Captain Jeb Hawkins, meanest man you ever met. Face like a storm cloud and a temper to match. He'd yell, "Samuel!" That's me, for I took the name Twain. "Samuel, you steer this boat like a blind mule pulls a plow." But I was learning. And one night, we docked near Hannibal, my hometown, when I overheard Jeb muttering to his mate about a treasure.
A treasure? Like gold?
Gold, silver, maybe jewels, nobody knew for sure. Word was a steamboat called the Lady Belle sank years back, loaded with riches from New Orleans, and Jeb reckoned he knew where it lay. There are 3 things which I consider excellent advice, I once wrote. First, don't smoke to excess. Second, don't drink to excess. Third, don't talk too much about buried treasure around a nosy cub pilot. But Jeb wasn't so smart. I listened and I started thinking. See, Casey, I was young. Maybe 22 and full of notions. I figured if I could find that wreck before Jeb did, I'd be rich. So next morning while the crew was snoring, I snuck off with a little rowboat and a lantern. The river was quiet, fog thick as pea soup, and I rowed out, looking for a spot Jeb called Devil's Bend. Now rowing alone on the Mississippi ain't no picnic. The Face of the Water, in time, became a wonderful book I wrote once. A book that was a dead language to the uneducated passenger, but which told its mind to me without reserve. I could read them currents, dodge them snags, but that night, the river was testing me. I found Devil's Bend, water all churned up, trees leaning over like they was whispering secrets. I tied my boat to a stump and started poking round with a long stick, hoping to hit something solid. Hours passed, Casey. Nothing but mud and old fish bones. Then just as I was fixing to quit, something thunked hard. And I leaned over, heart pounding, and I saw it. A glint in the water. Could have been the Lady Belle. But before I could dive in, I heard a shout. "Samuel Clemens, you thieving rat!" It was Jeb, rowing up fast with 2 of his own boys. They'd spotted me sneaking off and figured I was after their prize. I yanked my stick back and untied my boat, rowing like mad, but they was gaining. The fog hid me some, but Jeb's voice cut through. I'll skin you alive, boy!
Oh no, what'd you do?
I rode for my life, Casey. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. But I was scared stiff. The river was my only friend then. I steered into a narrow channel. Jeb's bigger boat couldn't follow. Ducking branches, scraping mud. I lost him in the twists, but I lost my lantern too. Dropped it right in the water. I was alone, in the dark, with no idea if that glint was treasure or just some fool's junk. By dawn, I was tuckered out. Boat half sunk from a snag I'd hit. I pulled to shore, muddy and mad, thinking I'd failed. But then I saw it. Something shiny caught in the roots of a tree, washed up by the current. I waded over and pulled out a little metal box, rusted shut. Took me a good hour with a rock to pry it open, and inside, a handful of gold coins, a silver chain, and a note all soggy that read, Lady Bell, 1848. I'd found it, Casey. Not the whole wreck, but a piece of it. And Jeb never got his hands on it, 'cause I hid it good. Buried it under a big oak back in Hannibal. The secret of getting ahead is getting started, I once said. And I started dreaming big. But here's the kicker. I never told a soul before you. Kept it quiet, 'cause truth is stranger than fiction. But it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth ain't. I figured the river'd give up more when it was ready.
Whoa, so you were rich?
Rich in stories, maybe. Them coins didn't make me a king. I spent 'em quick on a new suit and some cigars. But the real treasure was knowing I'd outsmarted Jeb and the river both. Years later, I went back to that oak, just to see. Dug around a bit, but the river'd shifted. Floods had taken that spot. The Mississippi River will always have its own way, I learned. No engineering skill can persuade it to do otherwise. Whatever else was going there, it's the river's secret now. And me? I took to writing, telling tales about Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, boys who'd chased treasure too, but smarter than I was. So Casey, that's the story. Ain't no chest of gold sitting in my parlor, but I got something better. Words. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. It's the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. And I reckon I caught some lightning that day.
That was... wow, Mr. Twain. I love how you tricked Captain Jeb and found that box. It's like an adventure movie. Thanks for telling me and everyone listening all about it. You too, Mr. Twain.
Pleasure's mine, young Casey. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. You keep listening to folks' stories and you'll do just fine. Now I reckon this river's calling me for a smoke and a think. You take care here.
Wow, that was so cool. I can't believe that some of those Huckleberry Finn stories were basically based on Mark Twain's real life. Thanks for hanging out with me on Living History, and I want to thank especially to all of our patrons who make this all possible. Shout out to Lilian, Rosas, Sastrè, Bob Pflugfelder, Eric, Guy Natta, and Matt Gillespie. Without you guys, this wouldn't be able to be done as we are, and if you want to be part of making this project, then hit the link in the description. If not, we'll see you next time.